So my background is education. I'm a former principal, educational consultant, and every move that we made was based on what data said. When I got to city government and come to realize that a lot of the work that happened in city government was based on nuance versus data, it literally drove me mad. We thought that it would help us to make tough decisions, to be able to message better if we could have data that supported the decisions that we made and to be able to create better narratives. And so when you're talking about a $15 million budget deficit, or you're talking about potholes and infrastructure that has crumbled and not just is crumbling, you have to be able to talk about that in a way that people understand that you're not speaking simply from a place of unsupported facts or a place of subjectivity, but you can actually provide information that supports why we're making budget cuts, or why we're looking at furloughs, or why we are only able to deal with these, X amount of street cuts as it relates to our infrastructure issues. And so having open data path, we think it engages our citizens more. It gives us an opportunity to have folks on our team who can actually see what we're doing, who can progress monitor us as we go along by having metrics that they can see and understand. Being a mayor in America is probably the only job in politics where you get to affect the lives of everyday people almost every day with decisions that you make. What we want to be able to do is make sure that we're able to present a platform before our people and say to them, these are the things that we want you to hold us accountable for. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to get it done. Here's when you can expect to see certain levels of progress being made. Whether you're a mayor in Jackson, Mississippi or Los Angeles, the issues are typically similar, where the dynamics may be different. But what we want to be able to do is to capture what those issues are, put them on the big screen, say, here they are, hold us accountable for this. We're going to show you what we're doing by turning the lens around so that you can see what we're doing, the work that we're doing to get towards those goals or achievement of those goals. What you're ultimately doing is you're putting all of, as we would say in Mississippi, all of your business in the street. But the beauty of it is we create, or believe that we create, an opportunity to create the narrative. And so it's not just, you're throwing data out there and you're telling folks, here's what is going on with the city's money. No, we're saying loudly that we have objectives and we have a focus for what we're doing with the city's money. We recently had a situation in our city where there was a death in our holding facility with the police. So we immediately gathered all of the facts. We huddled around how we would message that. What we wanted to message were three things. Number one, that we were going to be transparent. And so the way that we were transparent was by getting in front of it, calling the media to us rather than the media calling us. The second piece of it was, once we did that, we gave a walk down of everything that we knew that had happened from the first call to the time that we were able to find out that the individual was deceased. And then finally, we were able to show them how the transfer of information would happen from our department to the agency who we asked to come in and take over the investigation, also to how we will communicate that information to the community. What that has done, while it has not taken away from whether they're detractors or negative conversation, but what it's done is given us an opportunity to be able to control the message. And the message is that if there is anything that's been done wrong on our part, we're going to handle that. But if not, we also want to make sure that those officers who are involved and the folks in the holding facility, that they are vindicated as well. If you're a public servant, whether you're a police chief or a mayor, that's our top concern, is public safety. What you don't want to have happen is for the FBI to release a report, which they are going to every year without your permission. They're going to release a report that says whether or not you rank high or low on that podium as relates to public safety. We want to take that control back, and we want to be able to, again, we create the narrative. And so what we've been able to do is decrease violent crimes in our city. The FBI may or may not release a statement at the end of the year saying that we are a top 20 violent city. Well, what we want to be able to message is that while we may be a top 20 violent city, we used to be number one. And so what we're doing is making progress from being number one now to being only in the top 20. Well, no one wants to make the list at all, but we need to be sure that we can control what that message is, and that our community, that our people understand that while the FBI's data may be true, here's what a drill down of that data looks like. Here's what we've done to assign these different strategies to our program to ensure that public safety is not just a priority, but that we also have a systemic way or a systemic strategy in place to continue to see those decreases. The open data conversation is about a few things, in my opinion. It's about innovation. It's about how innovative we are. It's about processes. What are we doing with our processes? How innovative are we being with processes? It's about policy as well. But then on the other side of that, it's about technology. When you create a situation where you marry technology, processes, innovation, policy, you marry all those things in the public space, then what you have is a more efficient and faster way to get that information out there. It helps me control productivity. It helps me to determine whether or not we're being as productive as we should be, whether or not our strategies and goals are tightly aligned or aligned enough to be able to produce the outcomes that we want to see. And finally, it creates this performance opportunity or performance evaluation opportunity where I'm able to sit down with my directors. We're in a room. We're not talking about, nobody's giving these narratives as a part of their report outs. We're looking at the wall, or we're looking at some kind of a display, and I'm able to ask questions. Last month we met. Here are the goals that you set. Where are we in terms of the data? Let's talk about the data, because at the end of the day, the data is ultimately what I'll be looking towards to make decisions about performance and about productivity. What we've got to be sure of is that this open data conversation is not just a big city or mid-major city conversation. But there are ways for towns of 5,000, villages, there are ways for them to be engaged in this. And I see the data conversation not being a conversation that's being held by capital cities and major cities across the country. But it's being held by mayors in Bolton, Mississippi, or it's being held, by mayors in small towns in Texas or small towns in the South. But I see particularly the South becoming one of those the areas in the country where technology, innovation, open data, these conversations are a part of our everyday mom and pop sit around the table conversation. So if Uncle Joe or Uncle Leroy is having a debate about the happenings in current affairs in a city, that they're able to pull up a cell phone and say, "See, told you, they hadn't done any potholes in 20 weeks. There it is." So they can validate that conversation, win that ticket to the game right there.